I'm reviewing here with AOPA, and this evening I'm at College Park Airport with the EAA Chapter 4, and this evening I'll be talking about several things, but to include Mosaic and also the unleaded fuel, in addition to some other things about AOPA. We're glad to be here. My signature line there, I don't like being behind podiums, but I have to because the computer's over here. So I'm the Vice President of Regulatory Affairs for AOPA, and I actually, our home office is in Frederick, Maryland, and however, we have a downtown DC office, and I run our Regulatory Affairs group, and then our legislative body, and also our Airports and State Advocacy group offices there in DC. We also have 7 regional managers that are out across the state to do advocacy work at the state and local level and try to prevent, and they're very successful at it most of the time, prevent airport closures, airport encroachment, just everything bad that happens. So I get asked a lot, well, how'd you get where you are, so I'll share a little bit about me in the beginning. And by the way, Mosaic is a part of this, but I also have the unleaded fuel part of that in here, and some other discussions, and anything else you want to talk about, ask about. So I was thinking the way I would do this, Mosaic's going to come up first after a few slides in the beginning, and I'll probably do question and answers on Mosaic, and then I'll go into the unleaded fuel. Does that make sense? Is that good for everyone? Okay. All right, so that S-76 pulled up when I was driving in here. I absolutely love helicopters. I'm a helicopter pilot. This is actually me out in Mesa, Arizona, flying that 500 this past summer. Background, I did 10 years in the military, 3 Army, 7 Air Force, all active duty. However, I wanted to fly, I never could because I wore glasses back then. So I was in aircraft maintenance. And then did 3 Army and got out after that because I got married. And then decided I'd go back in the military. So I was trained by the Air Force when I was in the Army. So I called the recruiter and said, hey, here's my career field. I'm already qualified. And they said, well, yeah, we need you. And they put me out at Beale Air Force Base. And the highlight of my military career is I worked SR-71s and U-2s. So I did about 4 years total on those aircraft, maintaining them. Absolutely loved it. And then after I got out of the military, because they wouldn't let me fly, I got my ratings, got private ratings, and then did 20-year, entered the FAA after that. I did a 20-year career with the FAA as a safety inspector, maintenance, and retired in 2020 when AOPA called and said, we really want your experience in this VP job up here running our regulatory group. So I couldn't refuse, so I left. Yeah, I even left early to do that. So loved it. Been 3 years with the AOPA in that position. Last July was 3 years for me. And I'm private airplane, instrument, and helicopter rated. Also an A&P from my military background, and a senior parachute rigger, which the FAA sent me to, because as an inspector I had to approve parachute riggers. And you can't do that unless you're a parachute rigger, so they paid for that for me. And then education, bachelor's in aviation management, 10 years after high school, I might add. Did an MBA after that, and then I am finishing, I'm in a Albert dissertation level doctorate right now. Should finish it February and walk in May with a doctorate in education leadership. So, I'm a firm believer that you got to keep your mind and body busy as you get older. So I don't glutton for punishment, I guess, for education, but I love it. So tonight's agenda, I'm going to talk a little bit about the state of general aviation, just a couple slides on AOPA, what we're doing. Then I'm going to get into Mosaic, and then unleaded fuel, have some discussion on that, what's going on, kind of status of where things are. Few information resources, and then I'll talk about 2024, what's coming. Any questions so far about that? Okay. All right, state of GA. Obviously, GA operations are up. Where during COVID, when that happened, there was a couple months where GA dropped off just like everything else, but then it came back so quick. The commercials, they were down for years, but GA was right back up where they were almost pre-COVID within a few months, and that's just due to the support GA did, because commercial couldn't fly. So we were moving product, doctors, medicines all around the country. So we had a lot of things going on there. And obviously flight schools are busier probably than they've ever been right now. I know schools that have waiting lists to get in. Certificate numbers, new pilots definitely continue to increase. Obviously there's a huge shortage of pilots, and that's one of the reasons I decided to do a doctorate in educational leadership was the aviation side of the house and the shortage. The research I'm doing right now, the original research question was how to increase youth at a younger age, get them interested in aviation because of the shortage. So I interviewed the owner of the flight school that I'm using for site for the research. He said, Murray, he says, it's true. There's definitely a shortage. But he said, that's not the real problem. The real problem is I have a waiting list of students to come here. And the real problem is getting them to finish, the ones that start training. There's nationally, it's about 80% do not finish that certificate at the private level. So there's a huge washout rate. And for whatever reason, some of them's cost, many reasons are given, yet there's no research in that area that I found. So I switched my research question to exactly that, how to get students to complete their training, what can be done. So it's been fun doing this, and I plan on doing further research after that. That bottom statistic is actually huge. That's $247 billion industry that GA provides, and it supports 1.2 million jobs in the United States. So there's no question the value that GA has nationally for the economy. A little bit on AOPA. This year we're 84 years, and next year is our 85th anniversary. I'll talk a little bit about that here towards the end. We're a community that shares a single and powerful passion, and everything we do is to protect the freedom to fly. Bottom line, that's why we exist. That's why we have such a strong legislative group there in DC and regulatory as well. Like I said, I came out of the FAA, so I just switched sides of the table, and having that connections and network, I'm able to, when their members are having problems, it comes to me through even Mark Baker from the president. Hey, can you make a call? And so I do, and most of the time I can get it handled without having to escalate. So occasionally I have to do that too, and I don't mind doing it when I need to, but it's not the first approach I take. So now a little bit on Mosaic, and got a test question. Can anyone tell me what Mosaic stands for? It stands Modernization of Special Airworthiness Certification. FAA loves their acronyms.
Where's the I come from?
I asked that same question. I think it's just in airworthiness, there's a couple I's, so that's all I can figure. So the NPRM was issued July 24 of this year, and the original due date for comments was October 20th, I think. It has now been extended by 90 days out to January 22nd, 23. How many of you raised up? Say again? 24. Oh, I typo. I don't believe that. If you knew how many times I've been in this thing, that's embarrassing. So 24. Let me see. What else? It provides a wide-ranging expansion of light sport aircraft performance envelope and the types of aircraft that are going to qualify under the light sport category. Now, one thing this thing did is it separates light sport pilot and light sport aircraft. This is only speaking, this delves into a little bit of the light sport pilot privileges, but it's primarily speaking to the aircraft. So it's important to remember that as this goes forward. On the comment period, I remember what I was going to say there. That comment period, it's very important if you've been in the NPRM and reading that and you see areas where there's issues that we really need to have this type of aircraft be able to qualify. I've already identified several of those. Then that's what this comment period is for. And everyone should be commenting if you see areas. We as associations, many of you may know Rob Hackman with EAA. He's the regulatory guy that I work with closely. We're actually have meetings weekly now on developing association level comments for Mosaic, where we're in agreement. A lot of times we'll do that on really important issues so that we can get the most impact to the FAA, because we're almost 300,000 strong. AOPA is, and the EAA is they're big also. So when you combine association level impact into the FAA, they don't have a choice but to listen. So that's why we do that. Some areas of the NPRM need clarification. We've been identifying that already, and/or adjustments to the language to ensure appropriate aircraft are included. And I'll get into the specifics on the next slide. Let me do that first, and then I'll come back to that. So some of the things the expansion is going to do is remove the current 1,320-pound aircraft weight limit for light sport aircraft. The weight limit is not going to be listed even if the final rule comes out as currently written in the NPRM. And the way they're kind of controlling the size of the aircraft is that 54 knot calibrated airspeed, and that is the clean stall speed. So clean as flaps and gear up. So 54 knots is an area where we've got to comment, because there's some aircraft you would think are going to qualify and they won't, because they're above 54 knot clean stall speed. So we're going to be commenting on that, and anyone, if you have identified aircraft that don't qualify, that should qualify, then by all means you should comment as well. Controllable pitch propellers, any number and type of engines. So any kind of engine, electric, it's opening that wide up. The reason you say any number, you can have twins, you can have multi-rotor. So this is also bringing in eVTOL that's going to come in under here. So it's really, the FAA has done a good job of trying to expand this, and they actually added stuff that industry never even requested. So FAA is thinking ahead in a lot of areas, trying to look to the future of aircraft certification. 250 knot airspeed, that's up from the current 120. So you're going to get some very powerful, very capable, high-performance aircraft coming into the sector. Up to 4 seats. However, as the comment says there, the light sport pilot, as currently written, is still going to be limited to 1 passenger. Even though it's a 4-seat aircraft, they can only carry 1 passenger. I've already talked, as I said, I have contacts the Part 27 helicopters, I already mentioned that, they're not being considered. And even if they were, if they said, okay, if you're a 2-seat helicopter, a certified 27 helicopter right now, like an R-22, you can come into light sport. Well, you got Hughes and Schweitzer 300s, Instrums, all the others are 3-seat. It's like you're going to eliminate those. And so that's another area where we'll be broaching. And there's no doubt there's going to be a lot of others identified, a lot of other areas that will need to be commented on. But don't get me wrong, this is normal in an NPRM. You're always going to find stuff that needs to be adjusted. A lot of time it's the engineers at the FAA that are doing these things, and you get the rulemaking side of the house with their input, the lawyers involved, and so they need help a lot of times from industry to say, nah, that's really not right, not the way it works. So, and that's what we're here to do. And as I said, I already working with the other associations on joint comments to get that impact into the FAA. So how is this being accomplished? As far as once Mosaic comes in, how is that being put in? How does it happen? So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. You may know ASTM, so that's the standard, International Standard Organization. The F-37 Light Sport Committee is the one that is doing that, and what they do, I can say we, because I sit on the executive committee for that. We are the ones that will be establishing the consensus standards that's developed for how new light sport aircraft under Mosaic will be manufactured. So we're the ones that put the standard, we'll put the standards out. The FAA in turn accepts those standards. So, and there's a lot of areas where this is already in effect. We're just bringing this approach into the LSA area. And what this is going to do longer term, I already mentioned that, I was getting ahead of myself. So the consensus is between industry, OEMs, associations, and the users. So by the time that consensus standard has been voted on and approved by the committee, it has been thoroughly vetted. And believe me, it goes, I spent all this week, I've been in a committee, in this very committee, all this week. And there's a lot of discussions, it's all engineers too, and I'm not an engineer, so it's about, some of it's above my head. But I can keep it real, and then bring it back down to level. Yes.
So does that mean that, I guess my question is, what are the objectives of the changes to the standard? Is it to make it cheaper, make it, open it up to more manufacturers? What's what are they trying to accomplish?
So currently there is no standard.
Okay.
There is for SLSA. So that's where the manufacturer builds, and the ELSA. There's standards for those aircraft,
okay,
as currently. And what they do, ask your question again, I just want to
So the question is, what is the objective of developing these standards, I guess? So is it defining an entirely new category, I guess is what you're saying? Or is it taking an existing category and making it cheaper, faster, lighter, better? What kind of where?
So it's a combination. So the new Mosaic aircraft that are going to fall under SLSA and ELSA, light sport, what this is going to do is allow a manufacturer to be able to build the aircraft according to the new limitations or new standards, yeah, that the FAA is approving to be able to use.
So does that mean that does it still have to go through the certification process?
This is the certification.
This is the certification.
Yeah, and that's where I was going to go next. Is the reason this is so important and so good is it is not a Part 23 aircraft, nor will it ever be.
Okay.
So this is a newer way the FAA is allowing industry to use a consensus standard to certificate an aircraft. And what we see long term, and even the FAA says this, down the road as these things start flying, safety data shows that they're just as safe, if not safer, than a Part 23 aircraft. We're going to see some of this is going to bleed over into the certified world of how using the consensus standard instead of regulation. So there's a, it's very in depth, but that's the short of it. It's a good thing.
So the hope then is that aircraft will be developed faster and they'll be less expensive.
That's the whole reason to do this, and the shortage of training aircraft as the current certified aircraft are aging, getting older and older. The FAA wanted to get more training aircraft into the mix, and this is part of the reason they're doing this as well. So, yes.
So is what's happening, let's just take a 172 as an example. Is Cessna going to build a Cessna 172 that's a light sport and a Cessna 172 that's whatever it was for? I'm a little confused about what.
So that's going to be up to the manufacturer?
But I mean, could they?
Sure they could. Sure they
So,
could.
so there's going to be perhaps, let's just say a Cessna 172 that's a certified aircraft under the old system, and then a 172 that could be this.
Yeah, and I have a feeling what you would see is eventually they'd probably stop building the certified and just do the 100 consensus standard because it's easier to control for the manufacturer. You know, possibly. Don't know for sure that's going to happen. But it's a whole different way of thinking on the certification of aircraft. It really is. So in these standards, when they're being developed, there's numerous subcommittees down to, okay, we need to do one on the airspeed. You know, 200 pilots that no matter what, you know, how great light sport aircraft are, and I'm a firm believer in them, they will only, I'm only flying certified, you know.
Well, the certification is still required for commercial operations, right?
Yeah, other than the aerial work. I think there's, we got to see on that, what's that limitation going to be? So what comes out of there? Yes, sir.
So I'm going to throw a loaded question out there. A&P, no medical, 10172. Are we still going to have the IA component in here? And how would that also apply to home builts that are resold in the market or any of the other unique maintenance requirements? Do you see any changes?
Yeah, so aircraft, certified aircraft that are going to be qualified as light sport aircraft, at this time, they still have to be maintained as certified aircraft, A&P.
With an IA annual?
With an IA annual currently. That is not in this NPRM to address that. It's on our radar, though. This is one of those in the future I see we'll be looking at. And then the other part of that question?
Well, the various levels, because we have things like home builds. Many people buy used home builds. How would that
yeah, so there is already an avenue for that. Right now, somebody that buys an experimental aircraft that's been built, a home built, they are able to go to a repairman course. Yeah, I think it's 107 hours or something like that.
It's a week.
It's a week-long course. They're able to go to that and come back as the repairman for that aircraft. And then they can maintain it and they can do the condition inspection.
And I was fishing if there were any changes related to
Not in this current NPRM. We're looking at the repairman side of things. They're trying to increase the training up to like almost A&P level, it looks like. So we got to do a deep dive in there and see what's going on there. That's not going to get through, I'm pretty sure, because there'd be a lot of people raising up about that.
And one other thing that may not apply to anyone in the room, but a lot of countries have reciprocity. If Mosaic passes, how many countries would this trickle down to?
So, because it's going through ASTM, which is an international organization, we have other authorities in the room with us. All week, Brazil had two reps in the room. They're ahead of us on light sport aircraft. They've already issued theirs. It's not as expansive as ours, but they are definitely looking at, okay, we're doing this next to catch up with us. So yeah, it's just like we're looked on by other countries as kind of the leader in aircraft. Even though in Europe they got some phenomenal light sport aircraft, just phenomenal. And that's going to allow those to be brought in this country too, under this expansion, which is great because they're beautiful, beautiful aircraft. So yeah, the other countries are paying very close attention. They are going to emulate what comes out of Mosaic as close as they can get through their body. To include ICAO. ICAO is involved in this as well. So, any other questions on Mosaic before I move on? Yes, sir.
Because it allows any number of engines, And because people are doing all kinds of crazy things with vertical takeoff and landing and designing all kinds of EAVs, for a designer to then design it and market it, how is that going to be looked on by this infrastructure where you're going to have all these amazing new ideas come forward for all kinds of different mixture of aircraft that don't fit into these slots, like a gyroplane or a helicopter or a conventional aircraft or any of those? How is this body going to deal with all this new inventiveness?
So the committee you're talking about, the Light Sport Committee. So one of the things we're doing is we are writing the consensus standard to as generic as we're able to for the aircraft to fit as many of the new technology aircraft coming in, to give that bandwidth. And the beauty is, if we need a different or need to add a consensus standard or change, because it's not a regulation, we can within weeks we can have a new consensus standard developed. I've seen them turn in a few days, you know. So we get rid of a lot of the bureaucracy of regulation rulemaking that the FAA by law has to go through. I mean, a typical regulation is 6 years, start to finish. That's if it's not expedited. Very few ever get it expedited. And that's by law. It's a certain amount of comment time that they have to do. And each office, the department pilots that refuse to fly a light sport aircraft, they're going to want to stay in certified aircraft. So the demand's still going to be there. It's going to be a business decision, I think, for the manufacturers at a certain point. Case in point, look at Cessna and the 162 Skycatcher. That was a light SLSA aircraft that they have stopped supporting. They walked away from it. And right now people are flying them and they can't even upgrade the avionics in that thing. And I'll just mention in that regard, one of the things this committee I'm on with Light Sport, we're broaching that subject for getting third-party authorization to do upgrades on even Skycatchers or any aircraft in the light sport area that is not, let's say the manufacturer folded up, but there's aircraft out there that need support. A third-party authorizations are going to be, we're pushing a consensus standard right now to start allowing that. So yeah, you know, it's going to be up to the manufacturers. There'll be some business decisions made, I'm sure. But there's always going to be pilots that, no matter how great light sport aircraft are, and I'm a firm believer in them, they will. I'm only flying certified. You know.
Well, the certification is still required for commercial operations, right?
Yeah, other than aerial work.
Okay.
I think we got to see on that. What's that limitation going to be? So, what comes out of there? Yes, sir.
So I'm going to throw a loaded question out there.
Uh-huh.
A&P, no medical, 10172. Are we still going to have the IA component in here? And how would that also apply to home builts that are resold in the market, or any of the other unique maintenance requirements? Do you see any changes?
Yeah, so certified aircraft that are going to be qualified as light sport aircraft, at this time, they still have to be maintained as certified aircraft, A&P.
With an IA annual?
With an IA annual currently. That is not in this NPRM to address that. It's on our radar though. This is one of those in the future I see we'll be looking at. And then the other part of that question?
Well, the various levels, because we have things like home builts. Many
Yes.
people buy used home builts. How would that
Yeah, so
be
there is
applicable?
already an avenue for that. Right now, somebody that buys an experimental aircraft that's been built, a home built, they are able to go to a repairman course. I think it's 107 hours or something like that.
It's a week.
It's a week-long course. They're able to go to that and come back as the repairman for that aircraft. And then they can maintain it and they can do the condition inspection.
And I was fishing if there were any changes related to
Not
Mosaic.
in this current NPRM. We're looking at the repairman side of things. They're trying to increase the training up to like almost A&P level, it looks like. So we got to do a deep dive in there and see what's going on there. That's not going to get through, I'm pretty sure, because there would be a lot of people raising up about that.
And one other thing that may not apply to anyone in the room, but a lot of countries have reciprocity. If Mosaic passes, how many countries would this trickle down to?
So because it's going through ASTM, which is an international organization, we have other authorities in the room with us. All week I was, Brazil had two reps in the room. They're ahead of us on light sport aircraft. They've already issued theirs. It's not as expansive as ours, but they are definitely looking at, okay, we're doing this next to catch up with us. So yeah, it's just like, we're looked on by other countries as kind of the leader in aircraft, even though in Europe they got some phenomenal light sport aircraft, just phenomenal. And that's going to allow those to be brought in this country too, under this expansion, which is great, because they're beautiful, beautiful aircraft. So yeah, the other countries are paying very close attention. They are going to emulate what comes out of Mosaic as close as they can get through their body. To include ICAO. ICAO's involved in this as well. So, any other questions on Mosaic before I move on? Yes, sir.
Because it allows any number of engines, and because people are doing all kinds of crazy things with vertical takeoff and landing and designing all kinds of EABs, for a designer to then design it and market it, how is that going to be looked on by this infrastructure where you're going to have all these amazing new ideas come forward for all kinds of different mixture of aircraft that don't fit into these slots, like a gyroplane or a helicopter or a conventional aircraft or any of those? Well, how is this body going to deal with all this new inventiveness?
So the committee you're talking about, the Light Sport Committee? So one of the things we're doing is we are writing the consensus standard to as generic as we're able to for the aircraft to fit as many of the new technology aircraft coming in, to give that bandwidth. And the beauty is, if we need a different or need to add a consensus standard or change, because it's not a regulation, we can, within weeks, we can have a new consensus standard developed. I've seen them turn in a few days, So we get rid of a lot of the bureaucracy of regulation rulemaking that the FAA, by law, has to go through. I mean, a typical regulation is 6 years, start to finish. That's if it's not expedited. Very few ever get expedited. And that's by law. It's a certain amount of comment time that they have to do. And each office, the department goes through, and then it goes to almost to Congress, I think. But it's really labor intensive, where this is controlled by the industry. That's the beauty of it. And we're able to adapt it accordingly.
Do you anticipate that there will be a lot of new designs manufactured in short order?
Yeah. We probably have 4 or 5 manufacturers in the room this week, and they're a major player in this. So one of the things I'll bring up that is not in this is, and I was upset when I started with AOPA and started flying again. We have 2 RB-12s, okay? Great little fun airplanes to fly. They're SLSA. Full glass autopilots, everything, just beautiful. And one of our employees has an RB-12 that's ELSA. No, his is amateur built. His is amateur, but I know some others have ELSA version. And because they have that experimental certificate, they are the manufacturer. Well, ASTM for SLSA currently says that you cannot fly that aircraft in IMC under IFR conditions. You can fly and you can file IFR for training, but you cannot go into IMC. And that irked me because anyone with an experimental certificate on the exact same aircraft can fly all day long in IMC, you know? And that just, it pissed me off when I found that out. And so as soon as I started with ASTM 3 years ago, I brought it up. And I said, I want IMC for light sport aircraft, for SLSA. And they said, well, we tried that like 5 years ago, and it blew up because several people didn't want it. So it was voted down. Now it got voted up, and we're coming out with a consensus standard on SLSAs being able to fly IMC. And it may take a year to get through it because we're doing all the engineering part of it. It's not going to be at the same Part 23 or 91-205. It's got to meet the requirements in 91-205. So we have to make sure that those requirements are in the consensus standard in the end. But it still gives us the latitude to bring in new technologies to make it safer. Require autopilot. Let's say that's one we're probably going to have in there. Is if you're going to fly IMC and a light SLSA, you got to have an autopilot, and it just helps reduce that workload.
Short circuit for,
Say again?
you can take a certified plane and make it experimental.
Yeah.
And therefore, it's no longer the SLSA. It's an E.
Right. And people do it all the time.
So.
There's
isn't that
one
a
of them out of
shortcut-
Europe
Isn't that a
doing that right
shortcut
now.
into IMC for you?
Say again?
Isn't that a shortcut into flying in the clouds?
Yeah, we could take our SLSAs, they won't do it, because I asked them.
Yeah, okay.
And to do that. But yeah, so that's some of the things we're doing there.
Is EAA in the room?
I don't know if they're in the room.
I-
Oh yeah, Rob Hackman. Yeah, he's my counterpart over there.
Because I could see this really changing how many people go into EAA.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty big. It's going to be great. We think we'll be able to get it through this rank this time. Because there's a lot of us. And now, before there were some manufacturers that were against it even. And now all the manufacturers in the room are saying, yeah, I want to sell airplanes that can go IMC. It makes no sense. Somebody can build my airplane and go IMC all day long. And the FAA said from day one that you get the consensus standard said it. We don't care as long as you meet the aircraft requirements and the pilot requirements. Still going to have an IFR rating to do it. So as long as you meet both of those, FAAs, they're hands off. They're good to go. So this is where the consensus standard group says, yeah, we need to make some changes. And I'm so glad I brought that up because, boy, the first guy I talked to was with Van's Aircraft. And he lit right up. He's like, yeah, we need to file it. We need to get this moving again. So it was great. Any other questions before I move on to the fuel? Okay. So the pursuit of the unleaded high-octane fuel. How many has heard about the fuel issue? Probably everyone. All right. So the final endangerment finding has been issued by EPA, which says lead is bad, possibly causes problems. Yeah, we know that. We fully expected it. So the associations, us and everyone else, has said from day one, we are not defending lead. We know it's bad. We know we got to get rid of it, but it's got to be done in a safe and smart way, because 70% of the GA aircraft can fly UL-94 lower octane fuel. However, the 30% that remains burns over 70% of avgas that requires high octane 100 low lead. So, and when you look at volume of low lead, how much is being pumped in 1 year, that's 4 hours of automotive fuel. That's the equivalent volume. So we've never defended lead, but we do want to put it in perspective. So what that did, the endangerment finding started the rulemaking process for EPA to develop a rule that says to the FAA, you've got to set standards for avgas to get rid of lead. The FAA has the obligation to develop those, and the standards, here they're using the term standards, that's rules, regulations, for the composition and chemical and physical properties for aircraft fuel. So the FAA does that. Now they use a lot of industry to get there. By law, under the Clean Air Act, some of it falls under the Clean Air Act, EPA and FAA must consult with each other and these rulemaking requirements so they are developed in a manner, and this is important, does not adversely affect aviation safety. So even EPA and the Clean Air Act, you know, at the executive level, they know. We definitely know we have, this is by 2030 or sooner. We believe it's going to get here before 2030, the unleaded fuel, and I'll talk more on the fuels here in a second. So what the endangerment finding does not do, this is important because, we get a lot of industry, airports trying to close. It's the new thing in the air, the new conversation is unleaded fuel. It's killing us, we got to close the airport now, you know. We've actually had airports, 3 airports out in California that removed 100 load lead. They just flat out pulled it. And that is extremely dangerous because you have transient aircraft coming in that require high octane and they can't fuel up. So they try to make that next airport when they thought they were going to be able to fuel up there. And they've lost 1 aircraft already because of that, pretty sure. Probably some decisions being made that shouldn't have to be made in that area. But what it does not do, it does not mean that 100 low lead fuel is banned from use immediately. And to the contrary, 100 low lead is needed through the safe transition period to full availability of the unleaded fuel. That's key because if you look at UL 94 unleaded fuel that Swift has had it out for years, they're only at about 60-some airports in the country. So, you can't fly across the country and you're not going to have it everywhere you go. And there's no 100 low lead out, no unleaded 100 out yet that is commercially available. It also does not mean that airports should stop offering 100 low lead, as it would adversely impact safety, begin fracturing the U.S. airport fuel supply, infrastructure, and damage commerce. We saw those commerce numbers that GA does. I mean, imagine if you have a bunch of airports that are pulling 100 low lead prematurely until there's a 100 grade fuel out there available. It does not cause the aircraft to be grounded or become prohibited from using 100 low lead. I will add, these were addressed in the EPA finding, talking about the need for safety for the requirement to keep fuel 100 low lead available until one can be unleaded can be commercially available. These are the 4 contenders that are out there right now. I say contenders. GAMI on the bottom left has already got an approved STC fuel 100 grade out there. It's G100UL. They've got it developed. They're doing some demonstration type testing. There's some people flying. It is not commercially available. Because it's an STC process, so the bottom 2, Swift and GAMI, are both STCs, supplemental type certificates. That process is proprietary between the manufacturer, the producer, the fuel producer, and the FAA office. So the public is not able, not even us, nobody else can see, even other departments of the FAA can't see what that fuel is made of. They can see in general what it is, but not a deep analysis. And so the there's some strife out there, you know, about, oh, we don't know what's in it, we can't run it, you know, but there's people running the fuel and doing some demonstration of that G100 UL. It's going to get there, but it's an uphill climb to start getting it out there produced. Swift is another STC. They've got 100R, they're calling it. They are doing it wrong word. Simultaneously, that's the word I was looking for. They're doing it simultaneously getting an ASTM consensus standard, because the fuel is done by ASTM consensus standard in the past. So they're the only consensus standard out there for fuel. GAMI they did their own standard, which is legit. I mean, it's an approved process. His fuel is approved under their own standard. And so when Swift's 100R comes out, as long as he gets through the process and starts getting it out, it will have an ASTM standard. And what that does is allow industry, a lot of the players, OEMs, to see, okay, it's got a consensus standard, we know it meets this level, because those consensus standards are pretty public. You have to join to get them, but you know, the information's there. Where GAMI's is a lot more close hold, because it's so proprietary. The top two fuels are in the PAFI program. So that's the Piston Engine Aviation Fuels Initiative. That thing's been going on since early 2000s, that program. And you know, you see a lot in media about the PAFI program didn't work and all this. What people miss is there was probably over 100 fuels that were brought into the program originally, recipes, and they all failed. So that program, that PAFI program, allowed to identify a lot of the parameters. Okay, we know this don't work, we know this don't work, you know, and they live test this fuel. They run engines in the test cells and all that. They've cratered so many engines trying to find this fuel, it's been unbelievable. So you know, PAFI has worked. It just hadn't. The producers haven't came out with a fuel that made it all the way through yet. Now the two fuels listed, Afton Chemical and Phillips 66, and Lyondell, Basel, and VP Racing. Their fuels are they're not doing STC. They're doing the PAFI process. So the FAA test center out in New Jersey is the one that's running these fuels on the FAA's engines. I think they've contracted Lycoming to assist as well to help out on some of that testing. I think one of them, I'm not sure which, one of them made 75 hours so far in a 150-hour, they call it a mini durability test, which they run this fuel and these engines hard, and all the other ones were failing at like 25, 30 hours. They blow the engine. Because what they're doing, they're taking the lead out. Lead is what increases the octane. Higher octane prevents detonation. You know, it helps lubricate the engine in a lot of ways. And when you take that lead out, you've got to replace it with something that'll bring the octane to that level. And so a lot of chemists are involved in this at this level. The other few, I'm not sure exactly where they're at right now. They're both in the mini durability phase. I'm not sure how far along they are. So yeah, I just wanted to speak to that a little bit. Any questions on the fuels? Yes.
Is it going to require any modification to the fuel delivery system, like bladders or hoses or anything along those lines?
Great question. So according to GAMI, their fuel, theirs does not. Theirs is fully fungible, which means it can be intermixed with 100 low lead all day long and it doesn't affect it. The other fuels, not sure yet. So part of the testing in the PAFI fuels is going to be, if they get through the mini durability, then they go into full testing, which is probably a year long. And that's where, I mean, they go hard on them. They do go hard. material testing, seals, everything. They've done a little bit of that before the mini durability, enough to say, okay, we think it's gonna go, let's do the mini durability. If it passes that, then we're gonna deep dive it. What they did before, and they learned from this, they were running the heavy test from the beginning, and they were cratering motors. We're like, okay, we gotta change the process here. So that was part of that. Did I answer your question?
Yep.
Okay. Yes?
There must be tens of thousands of light sport aircraft that use a 2-cycle and 4-cycle aircraft that use MOGAS
Right.
when they're flying locally, but when they want to go cross-country, they can't carry their own fuel, so they have to use the avgas.
Mhm.
Are you looking at the impact of this fuel on 2-cycle engines? And one of the problems with 2-cycle, of course, is ethanol
Mhm.
for the tanks and other things. So is the industry looking at the impact on these existing engines that are in the many, many thousands?
Yeah, so the testing on this, I know GAMI tested pretty hard on a lot of different engines. I'm not sure how many. The PAFI engines testing, what they do, they start with a 4-corner test. So the toughest engine out there is probably an IO 550D that's in Cirrus. A lot of Cirrus is out there. And they put it at the highest power, and they use that as one of their high corner tests, and they probably test about 8 different engines that kind of envelop the full picture of all the engines, and that's how they come up with that. And GAMI did similar things, I know, and I think Swift's doing the same thing in their testing. So yeah, to answer your question, they definitely look at all the different engines that are out there and how that'll impact. It's all part of it. Yes?
Yeah. Since you have currently 2 fuels that have STCs, the challenge, I was looking at GAMI. Now, I'm a fan of GAMI because Lord knows I've been down there enough times and gave them some more money.
Yeah.
But they do know their stuff. They're a
Oh,
pretty savvy group.
I'll tell you what, they're chemists. They're fuel chemists. I mean, they're engineers.
I've seen their test stands and stuff like that. You know, like, okay, yeah, you know the market here.
Absolutely.
But to get the fuel out to the airports, I was like, okay, do I buy my STC for my aircraft or just kind of sit on it because where can I use it?
Yeah, exactly.
Is there some way that, what needs to happen to get airports to switch from 100 low lead over to the unleaded?
Yeah, great question. It was definitely a relevant question. So, the big, and some people say this is harder than actually developing the fuel, is to getting it out there, getting it commercialized across the country. That is a huge uphill climb in GAMI's case, especially because it's so proprietary. People, there's a lack of some trust out there by some of the OEMs saying, well, we don't know what's in it, we're not gonna, do warranty and all this. So he's got, and I say he, that's George Bradley is, the main guy out there with his boss too, Tim, I think it is. But, they've got some work to do to help get public interest up more, to start getting the demand push from the OEMs and all that. And they've got to work at their, relationship building, I would say, with the OEMs as well to start. And I know they've been trying to do that, through NDAs and stuff, non-disclosures, that kind of thing. Because when you think about it, he's got a recipe that's working the way it looks. And right now, if somebody steals the recipe, that would be the end, and he's got to protect that. So I understand both sides of it for that very reason, but it's not an easy task to get out there. He's got to get a fuel producer to produce it, and in his case, I think it's just mixing, to start getting it out there. And I think what you'll see is you'll probably see some airports that he will end up making an agreement with to start getting it out there at a certain point. When some of this demonstration that's going on starts getting out there and get more public, the results of that, I think that's when you'll start seeing some airports start trying to pick it up and bring it in. So it'll be several years probably for him to get it out there.
It's like, who first? Who's gonna go first?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yes, sir.
Do you know what the cost of that STC is? Is it like a couple dollars per horsepower or something that Gammy's selling? Or?
You know, I don't know.
I know, like,
That sound like right, because
A friend of mine
looking
got
at
a-
600 for my 300 horsepower.
what's that?
Looking
600?
at 600.
Okay. Yeah, because
Yeah.
it seems to me like, you know, I had a friend who bought auto fuel STC for a 0360 172. But in that case, it's going to pay for itself pretty rapidly because you're burning auto fuel. But this,
Yeah.
you're just paying $600 for an STC, so you can probably buy the same price of fuel. Like, I don't know what the sell is until that fuel's gone.
The benefit is the maintenance tail. If you ever had, usually at your oil change, you pull your
Just
plugs
removing
and
the
sort of
lead.
scrub. You get more lead, you can make pencils out of it. And if you ever been in an aircraft where you got a rough engine happen on you, and you have to make a center, I've got to divert,
Yeah.
engine's kind of running her up. Well, that kind of screws up your whole time.
It's just lead.
And it just let build up. And you know, the maintenance issues with your valves and things like that. So you're running cleaner.
Much cleaner.
That'll save you on the
Yeah.
the wrench turner business side.
Over a long time.
Yeah, you can look at bore scope cylinders that have been running unleaded, and they're just beautiful. I mean, totally clean. It's pretty unreal. It's going to have some huge benefit, you know, definitely. All right. Any other questions on fuels? Okay. If you wanted to do some more looking at information, I just list 3 sites there. So we have one at AOPA. EAGLE is the Eliminate Aviation Gasoline Lead Emissions. That's the conglomerate of associations, OEMs, the fuel providers. You know, there are a lot of people in that. And then the FAA has a site as well. Like, get a lot of the info on the PAFI program and stuff there. Other helpful AOPA resources. We're always here to help. You know, we do have a pilot information center that gets calls all day long. Member services, basic med guidance. How many are on basic med this year? Yeah, love it. Best thing I ever did is switch. It's a great program. Pilot protection services. I'm a member of that, and I don't get that free. I pay extra for that, just like a regular member would have to. It's a very great program, and even for buying aircraft, you have attorneys on call that they will assist in purchase and everything, looking at reviewing contracts, all that. And then EFERC is for flight training programs. So, how many are AOPA members? All right. If you're not, you may want to consider joining for your chance to win that. So that just came out of a year restoration, and they fly it throughout the year. It was at Oshkosh. It wasn't that color though. That thing is a beast. 95 horsepower, IO 370 Continental Prime engine, glass and round dial mix of instruments, lightweight interior, big tires, and it's going to be given away January of 24. We give an aircraft away every year. Last year we gave a Tiger away. That gentleman, I saw it on YouTube the other day actually. He was out flying, doing some flights, and loaned it to somebody to use. It's like, well, I'll fly it. But and then the year before that was on that beginning slide, that red RV-10. That was 2 years ago we gave that away. 2 or 3, I'd have to look.
Does this do a clean stall at 54?
Pretty sure it'll qualify. Yeah, that's got the leading edge cuffs on it and everything. This thing is a backcountry beast, it really is. So 2024, how many heard of the Arsenal of Democracy flyover over downtown DC several years ago? So picture that. So as I said, AOPA's 85th anniversary is next year. We are going to be doing a general aviation flyover, same route that the Arsenal of Democracy did. There's going to be 20 chapters of aviation history, GA history, 2 to 4 aircraft in each chapter. And the lead aircraft is the 1944 Beechcraft Staggerwing. That one right there. And it's owned by Mark Baker, our president. He's the lead aircraft for that, going to be happening. Be on the lookout for that. That is going to be huge. There's no cost just to get into DC. But they fly right over the mall at like 1,500 feet. It is just phenomenal. So highly recommend that. And we're also, my understanding is we're going to have venues on the mall too. AOPA is, and probably invite a lot of others to join. But it's going to be quite an event. So that'll be coming up in early 24 also. Any questions? A little bit over. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Mayor.
You bet. I will put my information up there if you want to snap a picture. If you need anything from AOPA, regulatory, if you have issues going on with a FSDO, that's my specialty. Anything to do with FAA that you need assistance with. Our office building sits about 2 blocks down from the FAA and not too far from Congress. So we stay pretty busy.
Want to do the announcements or?
Well, okay, well, I'll just want to ask a question.